Bicentennial. Independence. 200 years. 1819-2019. Liberation campaign. May, August 1819. History supported on history itself. Background. In order to get a better understanding on the origins and immediate causes favoring the making of the historical facts through which the historical event we are talking about, the 1819 Liberation Campaign, takes shape and begins to consolidate, it is crucial for us to point at some remarkable events previously taking place. Relevant background. From the 16th century, years 1500, and 17th century, years 1600, when it is registered the era of the conquest and colonization by Europeans from the Iberian Peninsula, representing the Spanish monarchy in both insular and mainland territories, from the so-called lands of Indias, later known as America. The conquistadors had to face the resistance and bellicosity of the native inhabitants, especially in the territory which was to be named Viceroyalty of New Granada. Some of the most relevant actions showing this may be, for instance, the revenge of the Cacica Gaitana, an indigenous female leader, against the Spaniard Pedro de Añasco, who previously had cruelly murdered her son. Or the rebellion of the African slaves under the leadership of Beko Bioko, also known as Domingo Bioko, King Bencoats, or the hero of the Matuna, giving birth to the Palenques, African self-governing small villages, recognized as such by the Spanish authorities. During the 18th century, years 1700, some events reflecting unrest and rebellion were recorded. against the authorities of the viceroyalty. As happened with the Wayuu natives from the La Guajira region.
La Guajira es una dama reclinada, mi Guajira es una dama reclinada, bañada por las aguas del Caribe inmenso. Ay, y lleva con orgullo en sus entrañas, y lleva con orgullo en sus entrañas, su riqueza guardado orgullo pa' mi pueblo, majestuosa encabezando el mapa, cual pedestal representando un reino, majestuosa encabezando el mapa, cual pedestal representando un reino.
In 1781 took place the rebellion of the Comuneros, made by merchants, farmers, peasants and landowners, who protested the abusive taxes, charges imposed by the local authorities and the Spanish crown on the communities Socorro, San Gil, Charalá, and Mogotes in Santander. They were led, among others, by Manuela Beltrán and José Antonio Galán. On July 20th, 1810, the independence movement materialized on the First Republic, which was in force from 1810 till 1815. During those years, our national history registers as a notorious fact the ideological, political, and even military clashes between two rival factions, Federalists and Centralists, who had radical differences on how to manage the new republic. In order to achieve the enforcement of the Federalist ideas, this group, conducted by Camilo Torres and Francisco José de Caldas, went to support the armies commanded by Simón Bolívar on the northern territories of the Viceroyalty. This is how Bolívar entered Santa Fe for the first time by the end of 1814, achieving victory upon the Centralists commanded by Antonio Nariño, who following this defeat went to the reconquest of the Viceroyalty southern territories. We must highlight the fact that with the arrival of Pablo Morillo in 1815, the political struggle between Federalists and Centralists was interrupted, being temporarily ended this ideological confrontation. the cultural and educational advance due to the release of many newspapers, thanks to the use of the printing, had a notorious influence along with literary gatherings and discussions, the work at universities and colleges, the organization and booming of the Royal Botanical Expedition led by José Celestino Mutis, with the participation of a number of illustrious young members of the Grenadian society, such as Pedro Fermín de Vargas y Sarmiento, Francisco José de Caldas, Jorge Tadeo Lozano, and Francisco Antonio Cea. It is also paramount the political and social struggle of the municipal councils and the release of the Memorandum of Offences published by Camilo Torres. It is also worth of mentioning the release of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, published by Antonio Nariño in 1794. External events. These correspond to special situations of political and social nature happening in Europe, and other regions in the Americas. Having a crucial influence on the independence process. Taking place on the Spanish colonies in the Americas, especially on the Viceroyalty of New Granada. The Protestant Reformation, promoted by Martin Luther in 1517, and the Counter-Reformation by the Council of Trent, which generated countless wars of religion. The 18th century is recognized in world history as the age of the Enlightenment, the age of reason, or the enlightened absolutism. Among his more significant intellectual representatives, it is worth to mention, due to their writings and political views, Charles-Louis II, Baron de la Brede de Montesquieu, François Voltaire, and Denis Diderot, among many others. The independence of the 13 American colonies from the British Crown in 1776. The French Revolution in 1789, whose significant contribution consisted in declaring and publishing the rights of man and citizen, and abolishing the monarchy as a system of government in France. It is also worth to point at the booming organization and influence at economical, social, and political level of the so-called Freemasonry. The most notorious fact is registered in Spain in 1808. Due to the conflict involving the succession to the Spanish throne between the King Charles IV and his son, the Crown Prince Ferdinand VII. This situation represented the perfect occasion for Napoleon to take over the Iberian Peninsula, using his French armies, with the ultimate goal of invading the British Isles. Once the Spanish mainland was under control, he imposed his own brother José Bonaparte as King of Spain. Spanish people and French invaders waged a war lasting from 1808 till 1814. When the Spaniards managed to oust the French armies and the Spanish throne was assumed by Ferdinand VII, one of the first royal orders implied taking back the overseas rebel territories lost in 1810. For this purpose, the Crown arranged an army of more than 10,000 soldiers under the command of the experienced military chief Pablo Morillo, who received the command of reconquering the American colonies. This was the case of the Viceroyalty of New Granada, whose independence was effective since the 20th of July of 1810. From late 1815 until 1819, Pablo Morillo managed to retake the Viceroyalty of New Granada, including its capital Santa Fe. By means of a strategic military measure agreed with his lieutenants Francisco Guarleta, Pascual Enrile, Carlos Tolrá, Santa Cruz, Miguel de la Torre, Francisco Morales, Sebastián Calzada, Juan Sámano and José María Barreiro Manjón, to invade and dominate the territories of Venezuela as much as New Granada and Quito. The only lands remaining free from Spanish rule were the plains of the southeast llanos of Venezuela and those of Casanare and Arauca within the Viceroyalty of New Granada. Thus began the regime of terror. From late 1815, with the fall of Cartagena, throughout 1816, 1817, 1818, and 1819. During this period, men and women who had served in different ways to the independence cause from 1810 paid with their lives in different locations on the Granadian territories.